Things just took a shocking turn as the agent of a superstar in the NHL has just revealed a tidbit on his future, and this has serious implications on the New York Rangers and what they're planning to do, what Chris Drury's plans are for the future of this organization and this roster. We're going to break down exactly what all of this means on this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 77% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with your New York Rangers, go down below, hit that free subscribe button, because this channel is built for blue shirt fandom, and this is the place to be for all your daily New York Rangers content and news. But Bret, let's get right into it. Obviously, there's been a pretty significant update on the future of Sidney Crosby. That is the superstar we're talking about today, and I think this has very big implications on the Rangers, whether they get this player or not. And let's jump right into it. So Pat Brisson, who is the agent of Sidney Crosby and some other notable people as well, and notable players, and might I add, his son plays in the New York Rangers organization. I'll just throw that out there. I just want to throw that out there. And former coach of Sidney Crosby, also with the New York Rangers. But Pat Brisson came out and had some interesting quotes, interesting words about Sidney Crosby's future. And he said, let's put it this way, it's always been a possibility, and he's obviously talking about moving on from Pittsburgh. And he said, it's been 3 years they haven't made the playoffs. It all depends on how Sid is going to be and how the team is going to do. So, it went very quickly earlier this summer, Bret, from Sidney Crosby will never leave the Pittsburgh Penguins. He would never go to New York. He would never go to Colorado, Montreal, all of these places, which we'll get to in a second, to all of a sudden, it's looking like a possibility. Let's put it this way. It's a possibility. What do you make of this? This is, I think, a pretty significant coming from the guy's agent.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be a possibility, Darius? I mean, the Penguins have been a dumpster fire the past few seasons. I mean, the last time they made the postseason was 2021-22. Sidney Crosby is not getting any younger here, folks, 38 years of age. But something that's very interesting, you brought up Pat Brisson just a second ago,
Yep.
the link to the New York Rangers. Guess who else Pat Brisson represents in the NHL? No other than Vladislav Gavrikov, helping get Gavrikov to New York. So certainly a connection there when it comes to Sidney Crosby's agent. Not only that, but why wouldn't one of the best players to ever step foot on the ice want to play on Broadway? I mean, imagine going out, the kind of career that he's had, and finishing it off in New York. I mean, this guy is not just the aging superstar. He is still putting up a massive amount of production. Look at this right here, 91 points this past season. That's more than Artemi Panarin had for the Rangers this past season, and he's 4 years younger than Sidney Crosby. Guys, I understand Crosby is not in his prime anymore. He's a 6-time 100-plus point scorer. Not only that, if you look at the past 3 seasons, Darius, just look at the production. It speaks for itself. 90-plus points the last 3 seasons. He is not showing any signs of declining, almost like, a unicorn, like the LeBron James of the NBA, like Tom Brady of the NFL. He's getting older, but somehow he still finds a way to produce and also, Darius, be durable.
Yep.
82 games, 82 games, 80 games. The past 3 seasons, he's producing and he's playing on a consistent basis.
Absolutely. And again, he's one of the league's Iron Men in terms of, he doesn't play every single game. He's not Phil Kessel, but I mean, he's been able to stay healthy, play a lot of games, produce. He's not even an aging superstar. There's a lot of aging superstars that we see that are still able to chip in for their team and play a role. But this guy is quite literally a superstar still. And obviously, like you mentioned, the last 3 seasons, putting up that many points, producing for his team, leading the way, and they haven't been able to make the playoffs. Last time they made the playoffs, like you mentioned, 2021, 2022. What happened to them in that playoff series? The New York Rangers gave them the Hulk Hogan leg drop. That is for sure in 7 games. But I wanted to further this with some other comments from Pat Brisson. He said, the comparison is Tom Brady. We want Sidney Crosby. And this is coming from his agent and his camp, by the way. So everything Sidney Crosby has been talking about, and I want to link this to another quote from Elliot Friedman in just a second too. Sidney Crosby's been saying he doesn't want to leave Pittsburgh, and I don't believe he wants to either. I think that he would want to stay, and his heart is there. But I think when it comes down to it, his agent, his camp, Elliot Friedman, like I just alluded to, came out and said this summer that there's a lot of people around Sidney Crosby that want him to move on so he can win another championship before his career is over, because he's not getting any younger. He's 38 years old, and of course he's still playing at a high level, but are the Penguins going to be back in contention by the time he's 41? I'm not so sure about that. So he went on to say, we want Sidney hopefully to be in the playoffs every year. We want him to hopefully win another championship or two. So each year that the team that he's playing for fails to make the playoffs, it creates a lot of speculation. In reality, he's not getting any younger. So a lot of this sounds like everything is still up in the air, like it could happen. Of course, he went on to say again, it's been 3 years since they made the playoffs. He maintains the same position that he believes that he should be playing playoff hockey every year, and his team is not putting him in the position to do that. So get your thoughts on that in a second too. I wanted your thoughts on this too, because obviously there's a huge connection to Montreal. I grew up a Montreal Canadiens fan, and the Montreal Canadiens need a center. They always have. They have probably since the last time they played the New York Rangers in the playoffs years ago. So that's always been a problem for them. But the New York Rangers could use a center in Sidney Crosby as well. So what do you make of certain teams wanting him? I think New York makes a lot of sense if he wants to win a championship. We know Chris Drury will do almost anything possible to make this team better and to put them into a contention window. And the defense is a lot better. You have elite defensemen. You do right now. You have an elite goaltender. You have some really good young talent that you're hoping blossoms into a superstar power on the the forward group. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a real possibility, because he's linked to so many different teams like Colorado and Montreal, that he does come to New York?
Yeah, listen, Montreal makes sense. I mean, you mentioned it. He grew up there. They need a center, but the Rangers make sense too. I mean, the Rangers have a couple of things going for them here, Darius. They have the market, obviously. This is New York. This is the Mecca. We know stars want to come here and play for the New York Rangers. Not only that, they have a head coach that has a long, long history with Sidney
Yep.
Crosby, obviously winning multiple Stanley Cups together with Mike Sullivan. Not only that, he had nothing but nice things to say about Sully when, his departure happened from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not only that, but the Rangers, we all talk about it. We all talk about the depth that they have up the middle. Well, guess what? That depth is going to take a little bit of a hit when you see a Mika Zibanejad most likely move to right wing. Mike Sullivan has teased it that
Yep.
JT and Mika playing together just makes sense. And now imagine, when Sidney Crosby hits free agency, I know the trade rumors are happening, but let's say he plays out his contract. He's in the first year of a 2-year deal, a very short window. You look at Taylor Radish there on the third line. He's on a 2-year contract as well. If you bring in Crosby, what happens there? You put Crosby on third line center maybe, because what I would like to do, I like to keep that first line together. Obviously Crosby is a better player than Trocheck, but I like the chemistry that first line has. I like the chemistry that Mika Zibanejad and JT Miller have. But Will Cooley is a guy that you can move around. So if the Rangers find themselves in a position where they have Sidney Crosby on their team, you put him on third line, you pair him with a guy like Will Cooley, imagine that on the left side, and then imagine this. Gabe Perreault. Gabe Perreault should certainly be ready in 2 years by now to be a major player on this roster. Imagine that combination of Crosby, Cooley, and Perreault. Now you're putting Perreault in a great position to succeed because, we've spoken about it. Maybe you put Perreault with JT and Mika, but he's going to have to earn his minutes. Mike Sullivan has made that clear. But imagine that line, Darius. Crosby, Cooley, Perreault. And then you're probably saying, okay, now Cooley's not on that second line. Who do you put on the left side of JT and Mika? Well, how about Brennan Othman? How about Brett Berard? Let those two battle it out. I mean,
Yep.
the roster would just be awesome with Crosby on it. And the Rangers are interesting because they are headlined by star players, star veteran players, Panarin, JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad, but they also have a lot of youth on this team. I mean, they're the 10th youngest team in the NHL when you factor in all the forwards, all the defensemen, all the goaltenders. The Rangers are the 10th youngest team in the league. And what better way to speed up that process, that youth development, and also mixing it with trying to compete than adding a multi-time Stanley Cup champion who is still producing and just brings that leadership quality that you love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the best players of all time. Like he would help any team that he would go to, of course, and get them that much closer to a Stanley Cup. And of course, he is a little bit older, but for the time that you have him until he's probably 41, he's going to be, producing at this clip. He just is. Like he does not look like he's going to slow down at any point. Now, I will say it is looking very likely when you look up and down this roster that, or around the league, I should say, he's probably not going to move this season. This will probably be a next summer thing, maybe a trade deadline thing. But if it's a trade deadline thing, he's probably going to a contender, maybe not necessarily the New York Rangers next year. But if he does come in the offseason to the New York Rangers, your salary cap structure is going to be moving around a bit, right? Like Panarin, maybe you don't re-sign him. Maybe you go out and get somebody else who's a little bit younger, and then you have a Sidney Crosby. You restructure the lineup a little bit. The combinations could be endless. We could talk about this for a long time, but I think that it is very exciting. And I think that he would at least, if this were to happen, the fact that his agent's kind of putting this out there, he would at least consider the Rangers and New York because they have all the pieces available to end up making them a contender with Sidney Crosby in the mix as well. But we want to hear what you have to say in the comments about Sidney Crosby potentially becoming a New York Ranger. And not only that, just Sidney Crosby leaving the Pittsburgh Penguins. That would have a significant impact on the Metropolitan Division and the NHL as a whole. Let us know what you think in the comments. The conversation always continues there. It also continues on X. You can find us on X. The link is in the description. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.